I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Good morning and a very happy Christmas Eve. It's 10 o'clock and you're watching GB News. Coming up this hour, people gather together on Christmas Day to have lunch. But what if you're homeless? Well, charity North East Homeless is arranging a lunch for them, and Rachel Sweeney, our North East of England reporter, will tell us more about it. And Nana Akua sits down with inspirational people to discuss subjects that aren't easy to talk about. Difficult Conversations is the starting point for discussions that break taboos. But first, here's the news.
I'm Olivia Guthrie. This is your news at 10 o'clock. Boris Johnson is urging people to come forward to get a booster jab in his Christmas message. The Prime Minister's asking people to get the gift of a booster as part of the neighbourly spirit of the season. His message follows data from the UK Health Security Agency that suggests Omicron is milder than other COVID variants like Delta.
We know that things remain difficult, but for millions of families up and down the country, I hope and believe that this Christmas is and will be significantly better than the last in this vital respect. That we can celebrate together with those we love and raise our glasses to those who can't be with us.
Meanwhile, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has thanked key workers who have saved countless lives this year in a Christmas message to the nation.
Christmas is also a time of reflection. This year, like last year, has been incredibly difficult for our country. Too many families have experienced unimaginable loss. For too many, there'll be one less chair at the table for the Christmas meal. But I believe that if we stick together, support each other, and work together, we can find a path through. I know a better future is possible.
Well, the Queen's Christmas Day message is expected to be particularly personal this year, as it's her first since the death of her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh. A photograph released by Buckingham Palace ahead of her televised address to the nation tomorrow shows the Queen in Windsor Castle. Her Majesty is accompanied by a single-framed photo of her diamond wedding anniversary in 2007. People keen to get their booster jab can now do so even on Christmas Day. The NHS is increasing efforts in a Jingle Jab campaign. Staff and volunteers are giving out vaccines today, tomorrow and on Boxing Day. People are advised to book, but the NHS say there will also be walk-in appointments available across the country. Well, the UK, EU and the US have received more doses of COVID-19 vaccines in the last 6 weeks than African countries have all year. New analysis from the People's Vaccine Alliance shows that in the last 6 weeks, Western nations received 513 million doses. Meanwhile, countries in Africa received just 500 million throughout the whole of 2021. It's feared the continent may fail to fully vaccinate its population, even by Christmas of next year. Police figures suggest that on average 80 officers were assaulted each day this year in the UK. Data shows there were over 7,000 assaults against police officers over just 3 months in 2021. The statistics suggest there may have been more than 29,000 incidents over the whole year. A former Minneapolis police officer has been convicted of manslaughter over the killing of a black motorist during a traffic stop. Kim Potter shot 20-year-old Dante Wright as she tried to arrest him over a weapons possession charge. She said she confused her gun for her taser. The 49-year-old will be sentenced in February. And the most expensive ever telescope is blasting into space tomorrow. 100 times more sensitive than its predecessor Hubble, the James Webb Space Telescope will be launched on Christmas Day after a delay due to weather. Scientists hope it will shed new light on the birth of the universe. That's your update. I'll be back in an hour. Now back to Tom.
Welcome back to GB News Live, your special Christmas Eve content for you today. Now, people in England will be able to get their COVID booster jabs on Christmas Day and Boxing Day as the NHS ramps up efforts to tackle Omicron. The number of UK cases keeps rising, hitting a new daily record with 119,789 new infections as of Thursday. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson has used his Christmas message to urge people to get their booster vaccine, calling it a wonderful gift. It comes as two official reports suggest that the Omicron variant is milder than Delta, albeit more infectious. Well, now further restrictions in England look a little bit less likely now. New Year's Eve may well be saved after all. Well, to discuss all of this, I'm delighted to be joined by Sally Cutler, Professor in Medical Microbiology at the School of Health, Sport and Bioscience at the University of East London. Welcome to the programme, Professor. First of all, these two reports, good news in terms of lower infection, in terms of lower likelihood of hospitalisation. But there's a sting in the tail in this extra infectiousness, is there not?
Absolutely. I am not 100% convinced from the data that's been presented in these studies that it is milder, because basically what we're looking at is we're looking at an infection that's now being sort of seen in a population that's got a degree of immunity, partly through prior infection, partly through vaccination. And so it's not exactly the same playing field that we saw initially when we saw Alpha and Delta and some of the other variants that we've seen circulating. So it's actually really difficult to actually get comparable data to actually compare the virulence. So I'm a little bit skeptical of whether it's genuine that it is less infectious, but I hope to God that that is actually the case, that it is actually going to be a less infectious version, which will actually sort of help to boost our immunity in the population as a whole. So let's hope that that is the case, but I'm still a little bit sort of, is the data really showing that? Is it suitably robust? Because as a scientist, I like to see really good quality data with sufficient numbers, and the numbers to date are quite small to be able to get that statistical power and show the significance of what we're actually seeing for the interpretation of our data. So the infectiousness, that is a real worry. And the fact that it is ripping through the population at the speed that we're seeing, that is absolutely terrifying. And the fact that we've got a lot of people that are synchronized. And so we're all getting our infection pretty well at the same time. And that is really the concerning factor of how do we cope with that in our NHS that has only got limited resources. And then you have to also bear in mind that a lot of the NHS staff are falling sick with Omicron as well. And so they're not going to be able to run the NHS at full capacity either because they've got staff shortages. So it really is a problem.
Certainly so. But if we set the infectiousness debate to one side, and indeed whether or not it's milder to one side, we have seen significant behaviour change over the last week, over the last 2 weeks. It's hit hospitality pretty hard. We know that people are going out and socialising less. And we also know that cases have stopped doubling every 2 to 3 days. We've sort of been hovering around the 100,000 mark for the last few days. Is it your view that that is the real picture, or are we not picking up the real scale of infections on tests? Could it be the case that sort of these voluntary measures that people have taken over the last couple of weeks may well avoid that huge influx, that overwhelming of the NHS, due to sort of taking that peak off infections through voluntary action?
Well, certainly it's good that people are trying to think before they go out and socialise and sort of a workplace party with your colleagues is less attractive now when you think, well, actually, if I get COVID then, I'm not going to be able to see my family at Christmas. And so people have actually thought and they've made choices and they've made decisions, which is good. But you've also got this sort of natural change in behavior that happens over the Christmas period. A lot of people take annual leave and so they're not going into work. So sort of it may be that they're sort of following the work from home instructions, but it also could be the fact that they've just taken a holiday and they're not going into work anyway. So they've got the time off because it's Christmas. So it's a bit of a mixture. And you've got some people that are really sort of following the guidance and trying to reduce their mixing and trying to be as safe as possible. Back on with the face coverings, really sort of keeping their distance whenever they can, engaging in lots of lateral flow testing, which I think is really the most sensible tool that we can actually do. But you've also got a group of people that are thinking, well, we've had all these revelations about the Downing Street parties and everything else. And if they don't have to follow the rules, why should I follow the rules? And so you've got the rebels in there as well. And even though we're supposed to be wearing masks in supermarkets, for instance, you can walk into pretty well any supermarket and see at least a handful of people that are not bothering. Okay, they may have exceptions.
I suppose the number of people wearing masks has risen in the last few weeks. I think, in fairness, people are taking this a little bit more seriously. I'm afraid we have run out of time in this segment, but Professor Sally Cutler, thank you very much for joining us this morning, this Christmas Eve morning, on GB News. It's a fascinating conversation. Well, this Christmas Eve, hundreds of street friends are being welcomed into the Newcastle Central Station for a festive lunch run by the charity North East Homeless. The team has been preparing food at their base in North Shields this morning, and they're now setting up at the train station ahead of the guests arriving. Our North East of England reporter Rachel Sweeney is with them.
In the heart of North Shields is a trendy community hub. It's a welcoming space for anyone. There are shelves of food for the hungry, warm clothes for the cold, and the lonely always have a friend. Dignity is important to the team here. They have a till where no money is taken, so children can experience doing a weekly shop. Nobody is turned away. Everybody is treated with respect.
I've always wanted to do some sort of helping people that haven't got anything. I grew up with just my mum. My mum brought the three up. My dad died when I was 9. And I've always experienced like the poverty side of things. And then you find out later on in life that your mum was missing meals so you could eat, and this type of thing. And so it's always been there. But then I passed a young lad in Newcastle, and it was raining, and he had no coat and everything, and I got talking to him, and as he walked away, I seen the bottom of his shoe, and it didn't have a sole on his shoe, and I was like, this isn't good enough. It's like, how can we be in a country like England that's like this?
And so North East Homeless began. NEH relies on donations, and they have a fair few celebrity supporters, including Geordie musician Sam Fender, who often pops in to play the piano. A team of 11 helps thousands of street friends through their centre and their outreach work.
So people that work here have had some sort of crisis, I guess. So like Earl, who works for us, so he was 25 years on and off street homeless, multiple addictions. When he worked for here, it's like, I give him the keys as just like, I've got to go, can you lock up? And then I found out later he was crying in the corner because no one had trusted him with that type level of trust.
14 years old, I ran away from South Shields. I've been in every care home in South Tyneside, to the point of I ended up hitchhiking up and down the country until I reached Bristol at 18 when my son was born the BRI. And then I woke up one morning and she ran away with my son. And that day, my friend introduced me to what I know now is heroin. I never knew what it was at the time, so I became, for 19 years after that, a heroin crack cocaine addict, 20 years an alcoholic, 20 years a methadone user. And now I'm over 5 years clean, 4 years dry and 3 years off the methadone, and got my first ever job in my life with North East Homeless. And my first ever council property, I've got a lovely bungalow over Cleedon Hills.
Earl has even started hosting poetry evenings, encouraging others to be open about addiction.
Our reporter Rachel Sweeney there. Well, after the break, it's Nana Akwia's difficult conversations, but first, here's a look at the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hi there, welcome to the latest forecast. It looks likely that we'll see further hill snow across northern parts of Scotland through this morning. Foggy further south, and then blustery rain turns up later from the southwest because of this active weather front. You can see the extent of mild air across the UK at the moment, but still some cold conditions in the north, and that's led to falling and settling snow over the higher ground of Scotland overnight. Northern Scotland still subject to a weather warning because of the likelihood of disruption over some of the higher routes, I think, from that snowfall. Elsewhere, a lot of low cloud, fairly damp in the north, some hill fog and some low-lying fog through central areas during the morning and early part of the afternoon, before this weather front sends a band of rain and gusty winds in by the afternoon from the southwest. Mild in the southwest, colder further north, fairly bright in the far north of Scotland, albeit with a few wintry showers. And then we watch as this weather front brings some rain to the Midlands, South East England, East Anglia, and eventually it stalls across Northern Ireland, North Wales, Northern England, into the Midlands and parts of Norfolk and Suffolk by the morning of Christmas Day. Either side of that, quite a contrast in conditions, mild but blustery in the far southwest, colder and frosty as we begin things on Christmas Day in the far north. This is the place to be if you like crisp winter sunshine for Christmas Day. Plenty of that for northern and western Scotland, and some brighter skies for southern Scotland at times as well. Mild and blustery with showers in the southwest, and in between an awful lot of cloud, and that cloud covering hills, as well as bringing some light outbreaks of rain and perhaps hill snow to the Pennines. Possibility of Snowdonia and southern Scotland as well. Boxing Day is similar, with showers in the south and plenty of mild air here, colder and brighter further north, and in between areas of rain and hill snow. Bye-bye.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click